Hey, you can say that on the show. It's bloody elbow libel, but whatever. Hey, we've been live, just so you know.
Who said it? Because this is just the Patriot.
It would look cooler if you put your fucking headphones on and you had them over the Patriot mask.
I know that's you, Hulk Hogan.
Like the Patriot's a professional. You could act like a professional. I hate you. Forward booting.
This is Fight Fans Radio.
Yes! 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 Woo! Yes! 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 Yes!
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Untethered MMA on Fight Fans Radio. It is June 27th, 2013. If you want to reach us, get a hold of us, you can do it in the live chat. You can also just kind of butt right in if you're hanging out. If you want to reach us on Twitter, you can reach me at It's Mike Fagan, Derek at Untethered Subo, and special guest and Bloody Elbow contributor, Matt Roth at Matt Roth 512.
Remember when he was just part of the triumvirate and he wasn't a special guest?
Yeah.
Am I a special guest or am I back? I don't know.
You're coming back kayfabe. This is kind of a blue blazer deal that's going on right now because I don't want to call you the Patriot. I'm glad you're back. I don't want to insult you. So we'll call you the blue blazer. You're Owen Hart at heart.
But
we're waiting for you to bust out the slammies.
The blue blazer literally died.
When Owen Hart did the blue blazer, though, and everyone knew it was Owen Hart, that's the analogy I'm making right now. That we know who he is, and it's just a matter of time before he drops this ruse and starts bragging about his slammies again.
I seriously thought you were going to say before he drops from the ceiling and dies.
Stop fucking making fun of Owen Hart, you son of a bitch. Although I will say...
We'll get in this real quick. New addition to this t-shirt. One new edition each week until I have to take it off.
Well, don't worry, because it's going to, the body part of it's going to be about this long, so.
McKinley's reminding us not to stalk Nate.
Yeah, no, we're pathetic. We are utterly pathetic.
Absolutely pathetic losers.
Should have said beyond utterly pathetic. That would have really made it sting. It's so cool living rent-free in other people's heads. You can't beat it.
It's true. Matt, how you doing? We haven't seen you in a while.
I'm doing all right, man. You know what? It's been a year of ups and downs. Lately, it's been a lot of downs. I'm not going to get into it because I'm not allowed to. It's not because there's like professional things involved. It's just I don't want to get into it. But I'm feeling pretty good now. I'm doing pretty good. I'm going home next week to hang out with some family and friends, and life is good.
And you've got a sweetener mask.
Oh, that's not new. That thing smells like him 3 years ago. He's had that a long time.
Jerry, how you doing? How's life as the white Dennis Cuddy?
Dennis Cuddy, yeah, that's pretty much. They're using my truck to do shit now. It's so I could have my own crew. Just pump that bitch 3 times. She'll start right up. I heard that shit earlier today. I swear to God. Piece of shit lawnmowers. I mowed like 6 lawns today. We went and did. Seven, and I'm working on like 3 donuts for 7 hours.
Shoddy poo.
A little shoddy poo. A little shoddy
Never.
Shot. Hey.
Never.
A little tap, tap, tap-a-roo.
No.
What are you drinking, Roth? What the fuck is your can of tomato juice or whatever that is?
This is Austin Beer Works Fire Eagle American IPA. It is delicious.
IPAs, god damn it. This
Man,
reminds me of the time I drank
local
piss.
business. I support small local business.
That's good.
America.
Oh my God, Mike's dad is here. Let's go ahead and have a shot in honor.
Keep it PG-13, boys. Keep it PG-13.
I'm having a shot.
We'll get right into the MMA talk. Not much going on this week. No shows of any consequence, I should say, this weekend. First thing we should talk about.
That's a very UFC-centric attitude you have there, Mike.
I'm pretty UFC-centric fan, Derek.
As are most.
Wait, but before we start talking about MMA, did you guys watch the Adrian Broner Paul Maganagi fight?
I did not. I actually really like Broner, but it just seemed like a squash match to me, so I didn't bother.
You would be surprised by how well Paulie did. He pretty much fought. He fought as well as he possibly could have, and Broner still beat him. But people were expecting Broner to steamroll him, and that's not what happened.
Do you agree with that, Matthew?
Well, I mean, the problem with Broner is that he allowed Malinagi basically to punch him as much as he wanted to. Adrian Broner, when he threw hard and landed. It was basically Paulie wore himself out, and then Adrian didn't fight back the way that we get used to fighters using that the shoulder roll defense, a la Floyd Mayweather. Adrian Broner didn't utilize that strategy, but I mean he handedly beat up Paul Maganagi.
He landed the more shots of consequence than everybody that was. I mean, the Malinagi scorecard was absolutely laughable. The fight metric said, or what CompuBox stats, Broner landed pretty much as many punches while throwing about half as many, so he was much more accurate. He landed more power punches. It was a clear win for him, and I want to see him again. But it wasn't the dominating performance that a lot of people thought it was going to be. And Paulie's not shot by any stretch of the imagination.
The best part, though, was the post-fight
of course it was. Yes, you do this, Rob.
Interview, and Adrian Broner's like, I took his belt and his girl, and then Paul Maganagi gets so mad, gets in Adrian Broner's face and goes, what was it? Don't be talking about taking my side piece. Don't be talking about taking my side piece.
You don't want to brag about taking a side piece.
Don't brag about taking my side piece. It was amazing. Well, and then one of my good friends, we were talking in the group chat about the whitest people and how people are so white. The whitest person in the world is Jeremy Botter, one of my good friends, who after that said, "What's a side piece?" Never heard of the word.
I feel like Matt Bishop might also be in the running for whitest person.
Yeah, that's true.
There are a few in MMA media that could be like
just
most
super white people.
Michigan's a home of a lot of them. I mean, you hear Detroit, but there's a whole big swath of white surrounding.
That's
Detroit.
true.
What's a side piece?
Matt, you mentioned during the Broner thing, Floyd Mayweather. Have you guys been following the media tour that him and Canelo Alvarez have been doing? It sounds bonkers wherever they've gone. I know they were in Chicago, I think yesterday or today. I wasn't able to go, but it sounds like everywhere they go, the crowd is just really riled up. There's a pretty good draw. They sold out the tickets for the event within 24 hours. So,
and expensive tickets.
Yeah, I think the cheapest ticket was a couple $100.
$350 is the cheapest ticket.
I'm kind of trepidatious about buying something at that price.
You have an extensive vernacular, Mr. Kid. I compliment you.
I mean, like I think the most expensive ticket was several $1,000s.
That'll go up because they'll get resold.
Yeah, that's
but I mean, like
that'll be a $30,000 ticket by the time it happens.
The last Mayweather fight wasn't his guarantee something like $35 million, and I think that they said that his guarantee this time, they didn't give the exact number when Kevin Iole asked, but they said that it's more than the last time. Like,
yeah, it sounded like he was hinting that it was somewhere around or north of $40 million.
Yeah,
I heard 45. That's insane.
Like, just crazy pants. Like, oh, hey, here's $45 million of anything, and I'd be like, I've never seen it before.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, this is probably the biggest fight boxing can do right now, outside of maybe the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight. I mean,
that fight's dead.
I don't know if that's. I don't think it's dead, but I think this Canelo fight is probably the big money fight right now.
This is the biggest money fight in boxing, I think. I think that the Pacquiao fight has lost its luster.
Yeah, well, I mean, what is Pacquiao even scheduled to do right now? I don't know.
I have no idea, but Canelo is going to basically get all of Mexico watching. Literally every single person in Mexico will watch it.
Probably at least 25, 30 million, maybe even more. And that's for Mayweather. That's for Showtime. I don't know what their deal would be in Mexico, how that's going to be broadcast. Because it's not like everyone in Mexico has fucking Showtime, so I don't know.
Of course not, but they have different. But it's a pay-per-view.
Something like that.
Yeah, it's a pay-per-view. The crazy thing, kind of going back to Broner, just putting in everything in perspective, with MMA versus boxing, because remember when kind of bringing everything backwards a little bit, when Strikeforce's deal wasn't renewed with Showtime, and people started talking about bringing Invicta on to Showtime, or one of the other promotions, that Adrian Broner Paul Malignaggi fight, that did 1.4 million viewers on Showtime. MMA can't touch that number. Nobody in MMA can touch that number on Showtime, except for maybe the UFC, if the UFC wanted to put a George St. Pierre fight. Showtime doesn't give a shit about MMA.
Yeah.
Steven Espinoza keeps hinting that he does it. It's not inconceivable. A lot of things aren't inconceivable. That doesn't mean you're going to fucking lose money on MMA again. I think Showtime's done doing that. They can make more. They'll get the same amount of viewers on a Saturday or Friday night showing Weeds reruns as they would showing Invicta. That's the truth. And Weeds reruns don't cost them anything.
McKinley in the chat asking if Jones Silva would do $1.5 million. I'm assuming he means buys, pay-per-view buys.
Not even close.
I don't know. 1.6 is I think 1.6 is a hard ceiling. I don't really see anything touching that, but I think Jones Silva would probably be the biggest fight since 100 in terms of pay-per-view buys, and we've seen a couple million buys since then.
I don't think it does 1.5 million.
It depends what the core is. If they do a double title header, I think they could probably do 1.5 again.
Do you think it does 1.2? It also depends on the time of year. If it's a New Year's Eve card, if it's a Super Bowl card, if it's a 4th of July card, it'll have an extra pop to it as well.
Yeah, I think Jones Silva is guaranteed to do $1 million for sure. It's just what's the ceiling on it?
I think that depends on the rest of the card. I think, Ian was saying, if you put a title fight in the second rung of it, or if you put two guys that are known and popular, then maybe you can squeeze another couple 100,000 out of it.
And if they plan on really doing that fight in Dallas Stadium and really just packing that card like 100, I think 1.3 or 1.4 is probably the over-under, and I think 1.6 or 1.5 is doable.
No, it's not possible.
Why
is it not
possible?
what was it, 1.45 at 100?
No,
100 was 1.6. That's the record, UFC 100. 1.6 million. That was a hell of a ceiling, and I think Brock did over $1 million 3 times.
I think the ceiling for Jones Silva, realistically, is probably 1.3.
I'd probably go with that too. But I'd say that's
a realistic number. I think that if you're going above it, then that's a reach. Some people talking about 1.7, 1.6. That's crazy to me. And McKinley brings up on the side. He says Rousey versus Cyborg on the same card. There's no way that they would do that because that's killing another pay-per-view, and they wouldn't do that.
Well, they did it at UFC 100. They put GSP in a co-main slot.
Yeah, and that killed the rest of their year.
Did it? I thought that was one of their biggest years.
Ah.
They did. I thought they did almost $1 million right afterwards with what was it, Anderson, and was it the Anderson Forrest fight?
Yep, Anderson Forrest. And then after that, the problem is that if you're going to stack a card like that with two, Ronda's good right now. Her first fight against Carmouche did what?
600, I think.
I thought
it was like
that was on free TV, was it not?
No.
It was a pay-per-view. They headlined, and I think it did more than they thought it would.
I think it did 450,000 buys on that card. And
it did 450 according to MMA payout.
Through Meltzer. So I think the realistic. They're not going to sacrifice the biggest women's MMA fight. I think that maybe they would do a Ben Henderson fight on that instead, because they're not going to kill an actual pay-per-view draw in Rousey Cyborg.
They wouldn't double them up. Yeah, they're going to make more splitting those fights up. You would not have Rousey as a co-main event right now because she's shown she can carry a card by herself.
And right now they're looking at like something close to 38 cards this year, maybe more. The UFC's not doing those stacked events the way that we were used to with like, two huge title fights and then a very, very good fight between Michael Bisping and Dan Henderson. That shit's not happening anymore. Well, realistically, it's just not happening.
Well, I think you'll see it a couple times a year. I think that you'll still see a New Year's Eve kind of a blowout card where you might see like a UFC 92 or 3, I believe it was, that had 2 title fights and a big kind of number 1 contenders-ish in the 3rd fight. I think that'll happen occasionally throughout the years, but it's not going to be every event. And the other ones that do it, if you do 300,000 15 times a year, that's better than doing 1 million 4 times. It adds up correctly if you just as long as you keep it on an even keel and you keep filling the cards out as well as you can with either title fights or number 1 contenders fights at the top of the pay-per-views. And they have enough divisions now where that's pretty much sustainable on an almost monthly basis, even more frequently.
Here's my question. If Dana White loses his fucking mind, Dana White and Lorenzo go nuts and just try and stack a card as much as possible. Imagining the world's going to end and they can use all their best fighters. What's the absolute ceiling for a UFC pay-per-view?
Probably 1.7, 1.8. Realistically.
I could see 2.
I could see 2.
I could see 2 with the right Canadian /
WrestleMania. Here's the thing. Like, WrestleMania doesn't break that.
I know, and only a few boxing fights have ever hit 2 million, but 1.6 was a hell of a number, and it had a George St. Pierre fight on it, which helped. But I think if you combine a Canadian card buying extravaganza like with George St. Pierre and a legitimate Brazilian contender, because not a lot of people thought Thiago Alvarez had a fucking prayer in that fight, but if you can add a bunch of international buys and just get 300,000 or 400,000 extra to the peak that we've already set in America and Canada, then I think you can hit 2 million if you do it right.
Well, also, we're also forgetting too. If you just stack your card with your top draws, that includes Cain Velasquez, who is going to be drawing in the Mexican / Hispanic market. I mean, I really think 2 million, if you really just stack it with all of your stars, is again, it's being generous, it's being optimistic.
Who's a bigger crossover star though? Who's more well known, The Rock or Cain Velasquez? Realistically,
I mean, how many people that are familiar with The Rock through his movies are going to buy wrestling pay-per-views though?
That's why WrestleMania does well. The past 2 years is because of Rock Cena.
How much better is it doing than it was the 2 years before Rock?
Like 150, 200,000 more, I think.
Well, is that from 6 to 8, or is that from 8 to 1 million? Because
it's gone from 1 to 1.2.
Okay, so it's a less than 20% bump.
1.2 to 1.5. I mean, like realistically, and this is all bullshit. Like all bullshit aside, we're talking about a relatively niche sport in MMA, where you're trying to compare the celebrities of George St. Pierre and Anderson Silva and John Jones to Brock Lesnar and The Rock and The Undertaker.
When you actually
I'm going to be honest, I think that the maximum, if they stack the card with all their biggest stars, I think the UFC maybe does 1.7, maybe, and that's a stretch.
I don't know. You also have to take into account that 20 years ago, when these records were being set, Tyson was setting the records with the 2 million buys. I think the last 2 million buy fight was him against Lennox Lewis. Nobody was streaming cards back then. And there were people that had black boxes that you could illegally get pay-per-views from, but it was nothing like just having it at your fingertips, being able to Google it and have 50 links come up in front of you.
In addition to that, there's just also more entertainment options. I mean, back 20 years ago with Tyson, like you didn't have as much access to large cable packages as you do now. You didn't have video games where they are at now, where they're even more mainstream. Even more people are playing video games. Movies are still a thing. Sports are still always going to compete with.
You didn't have torrents where it's, hey, I'm busy Saturday night, but that's a fucking awesome fight. I'm just going to set it up and get it Sunday morning.
Said too, yeah.
But again, I mean, I watch pro wrestling every single week on Monday Night Raw and SmackDown. I buy one wrestling pay-per-view a year, and that's WrestleMania. That's what a lot of people do. The UFCs are suffering because, and this is a point that's been kind of beaten to death. But when their last card that took place in Winnipeg, that was terrible. That was an awful card. So they're suffering because they're putting on weak cards on paper that you're kind of forcing your fans to look for alternative means.
Well, it's unfortunate that it's not like the WWE where they can't just throw everybody out every week or two, whether they're fucking injured and they shoot them up with horse steroids and shit, and they can script the outcomes. It's a fucking sport, so there's an unavoidable aspect of these weak cards when people are injured and people pull out fights, etc.
But the problem is that even with injuries, and the injuries obviously do happen, we're seeing, because of the fact that they're running 38 to 40 cards a year, you're looking at pretty weak cards. Subo's gone. Pretty weak cards. I mean, even if all things considered, all injuries aside, if you have 40 cards to fill, you're killing yourself. You're shooting yourself in the foot. That's really what it is, because you have to fill up 40 cards. Fucking Chris Weidman fought last year on Fuel TV against Mark Munoz. Really?
Last thing I want to say about this before we move on, if we go back last year, and we'll include the UFC 147, which took place June 23rd of last year, that was the worst show in a long time. That was 140,000 buys. But after that, you get 925,000 with Silva, Sun, and 2. You have a couple bad shows with Faber Barao and Henderson Edgar, which did 230 and 190. But then you get 450, 410, 700, 590, 330, 450, 900, 550. I think the UFC is pretty healthy with their pay-per-view buys right now. I mean,
but
they do 330 with Jose Aldo and Frankie Edgar, neither of whom are much of a draw, and that's sort of their low end since the Jones-Henderson cancellation.
I think the point that I'm making is that even when you have injuries, when we were getting, I mean, you go back to 2005 or earlier, like you had Evan Tanner fighting on the undercard, and it's just not happening anymore because you have so many goddamn people that you need to put on cards. That's really what it is. It's that because they're running so many events, they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot.
We'll leave it there. I want to move on. We're getting into our first scheduled topic, 23 minutes in. I'm assuming you've heard this quote from Tim Kennedy, Matt. I'll read it here. It's pathetic that so many fighters have to have other jobs. I'm one of the 3% of the guys in the whole entire sport, and it would be slim pickings to survive off what I make in fighting. It's a good thing that I have another job because the UFC doesn't pay very well. Anybody who accepts fighters being overpaid as a reality of the sport is sad and pathetic. I hope this isn't the reality of the sport. If it is, I should probably go do something else, like empty trash cans. I'd make more money than I do now. He went on to break down what he makes. He said coming up at UFC 162, he's due around $55,000 with a bonus that could be up to $70,000. But with the expenses of his camp, medicals, and fight team, he'd only pocket about $20,000 before taxes. And he revealed he spends about 13% of that on gym fees, 12% on nutrition, 10% to his manager, 10% to his coach, 8% on camp lodging, 3% for fight medicals, and 3% on equipment. In total, that's 59% of his fight purse before tax is deducted. Thoughts?
There's two ways to look at it, and I'll give the unpopular opinion first, and then I'll talk about his perspective. The unpopular one is, look, man, no one's forcing you to fight. Really, that's the reality of it. If you can make more money elsewhere doing something else, do it. That's just the truth of the matter. If you think that you're wasting your time and that the UFC is cheating you and that they're not paying you better enough and that your time's worth more and there's no reason to do this. Do it. Do something else. That's the reality. No one's forcing you to fight. And I think that's why a lot of people if you read the Bloody Elbow comments, a lot of people were kind of like, well, fuck Tim Kennedy. The reality is, like, look, you're over a 2-year time, he made something like $250,000. How many people, how many Americans can say that they make $250,000 in 2 years? Not many.
Well, I want to interject before you go any further. I think the important thing when we're discussing how much a guy made, when you say a guy made $250,000 or $250,000, it's like looking at a business and saying they brought in $250,000 in revenue and not considering the cost of the business.
Of course.
Part of what Kennedy is talking about is that there's a huge cost in, the money he makes doesn't go straight to his pocket. He has to pay that out to
other
the
people
he's responsible for. So,
but at the same time,
I agree. I do agree with your overall point, and I agree with that sort of unpopular sentiment that you chose this profession. That's something you got to deal with. But I do think it's unfair just to point to, look, you made this much money that we know about. I mean, he may or may not have made more. To point to that without considering, just pointing out that $250,000 number doesn't really mean much without considering his expenses.
I mean, look. The reality is, if you don't want to fight, you don't have to. Like this isn't a job that you have a right to fight and that you have a right to be a fighter. You don't. You don't have the reality is you don't have a right to do anything. If Tim Kennedy doesn't like the money that he's making, like, sorry, bro, find something else. Go back to the military. And that's the reality. Like that's not me being an asshole. That's just me saying that's life. If your choices that you made are ones that you have regrets about, and it sounds like he's having regrets that he's has a contract that he's not making a lot of money and blah blah blah, and I have to work a second job. If that's the reality, then find something else to do. Well,
it sounds like Tim himself personally doesn't need another job, and he has either other income or he's financially well off enough.
Yeah,
he
has a second job. He has a second job.
Okay.
He's still a serviceman with the United States military, and he's a co-owner of Ranger Up clothing company.
Right.
So like Tim Kennedy's fine, but if the fact is if he's going to complain about the money he's making, you don't have to do this. It's like an MMA writer complaining about the fact that they're not making any money. Go do something else. In the biggest fight of your career against Roger Gracie, at the biggest UFC event of the year, you don't make these kind of comments before the fight because the UFC doesn't really take kindly to it. You're one fight away from getting cut. You're not going to make these comments beforehand. That's stupid.
Yeah, you're always one fight away from getting cut. And if Kennedy, like you said earlier, Kennedy doesn't move the needle. He's not bringing in any buys. So there's really nothing protecting him from getting cut. I have no idea what you're doing right now. The other big story this week, as big of a story as you can get without a UFC coming up. The Bellator Alvarez case will not go to trial until late 2014 at the earliest. Pre-trial conference may take place, according to MMA Payout, quote, anytime after September 15, 2014, and after resolution of any dispositive motions, according to the order. I don't understand what Alvarez is doing here. At this point, if this ends in late 2014, it'll be almost 2 years between fights.
No, that would be when it starts. but like it doesn't go to trial until late 2014. They're getting the depositions done in mid-July in 2014. Like this, the thing that the most ridiculous part about all this is that I don't really think that Viacom and Bellator realize this doesn't affect the UFC. Realistically, I mean, the UFC isn't affected by this. If Eddie Alvarez doesn't fight in the UFC, it doesn't hurt them. It doesn't hurt their legacy as a promotion. But how many people want them to, want them, but I mean, Viacom, if they keep this guy out of fighting for 2 years or 2+ years, that looks atrocious on them as far as from a public relations perspective. And then again, I mean, continuing even further, how many young fighters are going to go, oh, Bellator, the company that fucked over Eddie Alvarez and kept him in court for 2+ years? I totally want to sign with them. Nobody wants to do that. Realistically, everybody wants to sign with the UFC. And with Mike Chandler and Ben Askren's contracts coming up soon, and Pat Curran's contract coming up soon, every single one of those guys is going to want to sign with the UFC. That's the reality.
Yeah, Alvarez's last fight was October 12th of last year, so that'll be 2 years, October 2014. And like you said, that'll be when the trial would hopefully start. Is there any chance still of a settlement? Is that still an option, or is this sort of committed to?
It's a settlement if Bellator is willing to walk away from it. I think that the only sort of settlement would be if Bellator agrees just to leave. That would be the only way. And it's not even Bellator; it's Viacom. And I mean, and here, I don't know if last week you guys talked about the ratings for Fightmaster, but like the ratings for Bellator have been atrocious. The Fightmaster ratings were awful. Like all these contracts and like these guys that they're signing because they have like this. Now they have Viacom at their disposal. Like that looks like that's shit. Reality, it's shit. When Fightmaster's doing 450,000 viewers, and and the Bellator fight with King Mo, headliner, and Babalu, who's still sort of well known, is doing 450,000 viewers. Sorry, like you're shit. Like you're shit.
Don't hold back. Tell us what you really think, Matt.
Oh, my bad. They increased to 545,000. Okay, still shit.
Well, it seems like at this point, if Eddie's willing to wait out until 2014 at the late 2014 at the very earliest, assuming that this thing would get wrapped up quick in a courtroom, and probably 2015 legitimately in terms of a legitimate outlook. Wouldn't it be better for him just to sign with Bellator at this point and get through that contract and then see where he's at afterwards?
8 fights?
Is it 8 fights? Is that what the?
That was
Yep.
that was the matched deal was 8 fights. So Eddie Alvarez is going to fight 8 more times for Bellator and then have to go through another matching period. Come on,
I think
Go ahead.
the big lesson from this is just wait out your fucking matching period.
Yeah, well, either wait it out or get a deal that's so. Part of the problem here is that the UFC fucked up too. They thought that the contract they were offering would Bellator or Viacom wouldn't be able to match it, but the way the contract was worded,
they did not match it. Let's be honest with that.
Well, yeah, I agree, but in terms of legalese, they have at least a legal argument to get it to trial.
Even then, though, it's because of the pay-per-view thing. I mean, Bellator are saying they can go on pay-per-view, but
right. But that's the thing is that if they had just offered Eddie some more concrete terms, even just for the first fight, to front load it, like we'll give you a retarded amount of money up front, and then we'll front load it, and then towards the end of it, you're going to have to deal with whatever.
But you can't.
That opened the door for Bellator to just sort of change some terms, sign their names, and say, yeah, we matched it.
No, but here's the thing: you can't put this on the UFC because the UFC has fighters that have fought for them that have been loyal to them that weren't getting this kind of Eddie Alvarez money. Like the reality.
The thing is that they already were giving Eddie I mean, Ben Henderson complained about it when he saw the terms. I mean, they were giving Eddie
more than Ben Henderson.
More than Ben Henderson. What I'm saying is that if they had just for that first fight or those first two fights had just stacked his either monetary compensation, his guarantee, like, you know, give him 6 figures up front, and then, you know, in the back end of it, sort of trail it off and have him sort of sink or swim on pay-per-view. You know, there's a risk in that, just like there was a risk in signing Lombard, but now, and again for them though, I mean, they don't need Eddie Alvarez. They don't.
I think
they never
what I might
did.
have done. There you go.
Go ahead. Yep. Go ahead, Ian.
Alright, I think what I might have done is just taken what I'd expect to pay Alvarez in pay-per-view cut. Like, it's only going to be like $500,000-$600,000 even if he gets the pay-per-view cut. I just said if you're on pay-per-view, I'll throw you an extra $600,000 and just fuck Bellator that way. Because that way, if they do try and put on a pay-per-view, you know?
Yeah, basically take what the value or a percentage of the value that Eddie would have gotten off pay-per-view and just gave it to him up front as a signing bonus that Bellator couldn't or would not want to match.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I mean, Eddie Alvarez's case, everything else aside, probably also one of the most important things that happen in MMA, because like Mike Chandler wants that same deal next time.
Right.
Yeah.
Pat Kieran wants that same deal. Ben Askren wants that same deal. They all want the same big money that you offered a non-champion. And so Bellator, you know, they kind of fucked at Eddie Alvarez. They also fucked themselves. Because, you know, if Eddie Alvarez comes back and he gets that $300,000 signing bonus and then all, you know, the money deal that he's getting.
And the TV specials and all the other stuff that they were sort of trying to guarantee.
Yeah, I mean, like, if Eddie Alvarez, under the UFC contract, if he won all 8 fights, he ends up on the 8th fight at 210-210.
That's
okay.
It's good money.
So Mike Chandler wants that. He beat Eddie Alvarez. You know, I mean, Pat Kieran, he's the guy who annihilated Joe Warren, who's now coach on Fight Master. Like, this looks bad for everyone except for the UFC, and that's the reality. Like, the UFC comes out of this, it doesn't affect them. Okay, if they don't get Eddie Alvarez, it sucks, because we never get to see how Eddie Alvarez does against the UFC lightweights.
Or we see Eddie Alvarez in the UFC post 30, entering in his prime still, but sort of on the back end of it. We don't see Eddie Alvarez when we wanted to. Yeah, and also a shitload of ring rust, yeah. The last story I want to talk to you about before we get into this new history thing I want to do. An interesting rematch. Mirko Cro Cop and Alexander.
We had one more thing. We had one more thing before Cro Cop and...
What do you want? The Couture thing?
How about the Couture?
All right, we can talk about the Couture thing.
Yeah, I got.
I was gonna skip over. Obviously, Randy upset that the UFC is trying to prevent him from cornering his son Ryan. The first thing I want to ask you, is this an issue that only that the UFC can control, or is he going to be able to be protected by the commission, and the commission can sort of step in and say, well, he's a licensed cornerman, he can corner this guy?
I think the UFC can control it. Especially if they do all of Ryan's fights overseas.
You don't think? Oh, in the sense that they would be the commission at that point, and then they could deny him the license. Yeah,
of course. And I mean, let's go beyond that. Let's talk about Randy and the UFC. Randy went ahead and he got out of his UFC contract under false pretenses. Where he was going to be a commentator on Fuel TV and Fox, and he gave him an excuse, saying, I can't remember what it was. Maybe somebody watching remembers, but he gave him an excuse, and then he signs this contract with Viacom. Randy Couture is not a loyal person. You know, this is the guy that said that he retired on a contract that had fights left on it, because you wanted to fight Fedor Emelianenko for a different promotion. Like, Randy Couture is not a good guy. Like, awful human being. I have no pity for him. I feel bad that his son's getting caught up in it. Like, it sucks for Ryan. But, like, you're the son of not a good person.
I don't know if I'd call him a bad person. I think he's a flawed person. He's not Aaron Hernandez.
No, Aaron Hernandez is a bad person.
Yeah, Aaron Hernandez is a bad dude.
He's not awful for wanting to make money, McKinley, but he's awful for doing it under false pretenses and not being honest.
If Randy Couture shoots 3 people in the face tomorrow, you're going to feel so stupid, Mike Fagan.
Oh, when he gets arrested for murdering people?
Yeah.
Find out that Randy's just been murdering hookers in Vegas?
Wouldn't surprise me.
Would it not surprise me?
All right. Well, now we'll get to the Cro Cop Emelianenko. Cro Cop rematching and Emelianenko, not the one that we all want to see. Well, I don't know if we would want to see that at this point. You know what? This is obviously stupid. It's a stupid fight, but I'll probably watch it. Guilty pleasure. I'll probably watch it.
Yep. I mean, do you want to see Cro Cop fight? Do you want to see Alex Emelianenko fight?
Didn't he lose his last fight?
Didn't he beat Bob Sapp?
No, yeah, he beat Bob Sapp. He lost to Jeff Monson.
Didn't he lose a fight with a hepatitis test?
Well, allegedly. That's still just so weird that, like, it's been rumored for so long, and there's been, he keeps denying it, but I haven't seen any proof that he doesn't have hepatitis.
That's why if you get tattoos, kids, you don't get them done in prison.
Also, Mookie saying Alexander versus Hep C is more interesting than Cro Cop and MMA again. I thought it was Hep B. I thought he had hepatitis B. Which hepatitis B, from what I read, I believe, just sort of spontaneously goes away. In most cases, sometimes you can treat it or you have to treat it. But from what I've read, it just sort of stops affecting you.
Hep C is pound for pound way tougher than Hep B anyway.
All right, Matt. I was hoping to do this with Derek at least for one of these fights. But what we're going to start doing is going through MMA history over the last week. NYID 07 on Twitter, or Nick Yadaris, was saying that we should call this segment "Remember This Shit," which I think is pretty appropriate. So I'm gonna go through a list. There's 5 fights here, or 5 events in MMA history that happened over the past week. The 15th anniversary of Pride 3, which had Sakuraba and Carlos Newton, which is one of the first.
That was my Sakuraba impression. Sorry.
Which is one of the first sort of fights in MMA that really showed you what grappling can look like in MMA.
Can I just say that's literally my favorite fight of all time?
Really?
Is it really?
Yep.
Really?
Favorite
That's
fight
awesome.
of all time, Sakuraba Newton.
It's the only one on the list that I really didn't have a chance to watch before, but I remember watching it recently, and it's enjoyable. I mean, it's good.
Wait. When did Sakuraba fight Emmanuel Newton?
Emmanuel Newton? Oh, fuck off. Fuck off. This is also the 5th anniversary of Evan Tanner's last MMA fight. It was TUF 7 against Kendall Grove. I watched that as we were getting into the show, and the thing I remember about it then and rewatching it now, it's just sort of an average fight. But watching it then, I just remember thinking Evan Tanner's old, and he doesn't belong in the UFC anymore.
I remember at that time I thought that Evan Tanner won it. But, I mean, like, I've always been a huge Evan Tanner fan. And, like, he was my favorite fighter for quite a long time. So when he fought Kendall Grove, maybe I just had those goggles on where I thought that he beat Kendall Grove. Watching it again, it wasn't a great fight. But I mean, Tanner, I agree. He looked old. That was just he wasn't the man that he was. But he was.
I'm really surprised, and maybe I missed something, but I was really surprised that no one really wrote about it. Since he was, especially for people that have been fans of the sport for a long time, he was a guy that was sort of beloved, and I was surprised that no one really brought it up. I'm assuming, being the 5th year since his death, that when that comes up, someone will write something about it. But he last fought June 21st, and then by September 5th was when he had died, which is sort of crazy. Because I remember, I started watching in 2007, so I didn't really see most of his career live, but I saw the Okami fight and the Grove fight, and I sort of learned about him. But I remember he had that fight with Grove. I remember when he went out on that trip, and people sort of joked about, maybe he's going to get lost in the desert and die, and then he did get lost in the desert and die. And it seemed, not that you ever want to celebrate a death like this, but it seemed appropriate for Evan Tanner and his life story.
Yeah, I mean, like it's an appropriate way for a guy like that to go out. I mean, I remember his death, and I remember reading about it and watching Inside MMA, and that was. That was awful because I used to read about his blog. I used to read his blogs that he was putting on MySpace, and then he was also writing for Spike TV at the time too. So he had blogs on Spike.com. I really enjoyed his fights, and I enjoyed his writing, and again, maybe I had the Evan Tanner fan goggles on, but I thought that he beat Kendall Grove, but looking back. He looked really, really old in that fight. Not the guy that I remembered.
Yeah. Also, the 11th anniversary of Pride 21. The notable things from Pride 21 were the Pride debuts of Fedor Emelianenko and Anderson Silva, and also was
the most amazing fight of all time.
Don Fry and Yoshihiro Takayama. One thing about the Takayama Fry fight. Obviously, it's enjoyable to watch. It's one of the most fun fights of all time. I want to be very specific when I say the word work. It's hard for me to imagine that two guys that were so entwined with the pro wrestling scene in Japan, that initial just fuck it, we're gonna throw punches wasn't sort of a handshake agreement before the fight.
I don't know. I don't know, and I don't want to say that that's what happened, because that's to me again, I love that fight. Like just the fact that two guys just went into collar ties and just uppercutted the shit out of each other and threw hooks at each other's heads. That's such a fun fight to me. I don't want to imagine that that's what happened. Probably what happened. But but I don't want to say it. So that was off the record.
McKinley in the chat. Who cares if it was? Just beat the shit out of each other until we get tired. Imagine if UFC fighters did that. Lower tier guys would be stars. Maybe
they did do that. They did do that,
and half of the guys have done that. I mean, not. I don't think to that magnitude, but
what was the fight where Josh Neer just kind of stood in front of the guy and just got elbowed in the face over and over again?
Well, and there was also the Matt Serra
Chris Lytle fight.
Chris Lytle rematch.
Yeah,
that was sort of in public, sort of a handshake agreement.
And every other fight. I mean, and then wasn't there the Dan Hardy Chris Lytle fight was a handshake agreement, and then Dan Hardy went back on it because he
two more here. It's the 6th anniversary of Shamrock Baroni. The thing that I found most interesting rewatching that today was I forgot that not only did Bill Goldberg was on color commentary, but Jake Glazer was a part of that show. There was a 3-man booth with Glazer, Goldberg, and Mauro Ranallo.
I just want to say, when you first said that, I thought you said Jake Laser, and that's just such a better name. I hope somewhere out there's a guy called Jake Laser, and he goes into pro wrestling.
Wait, his name is Jake Laser?
Yeah.
Man, Bill Goldberg was probably the best thing to happen to MMA ever.
I mean, I remember at the time not minding him so much, but rewatching that, it was sort of brutal.
No, but remember, because we're probably eventually going to talk about it eventually, but the first Elite XC show, and that they were talking about how it was the commentary booth was originally going to be Mario Lopez and You remember this or no? Or my?
No, I didn't remember this.
I vaguely remember this. Yeah.
And like Mario Lopez was supposed to be involved in Elite XC, and then like somebody did like an interview with him about MMA, and he had no idea, no idea what was going on, and somebody at Showtime or within Pro Elite was like, not having that
AC
guy.
Slater could have been pound for pound one of the best wrestlers in the world, man. I'm not going to hear shit against Mario Lopez. AC Slater could have been a stud.
There was another.
Slater was a legend.
There was another interesting angle on this fight that I didn't realize or I didn't remember. Morrow at the beginning of the fight mentioned that on the EliteXC.com poll, 59% of people took Baroni, and then that sort of spurred me to check the betting lines. Baroni was actually the favorite in this fight. It was close. It was close to even, but Baroni was like a minus 120, minus 130 favorite.
Over Shamrock?
Over Shamrock. You got to remember, at the time, Shamrock only had a couple fights. He fought Cesar Gracie and then Henzo, and he didn't terribly great.
And Phil Baroni is the best ever.
He's the New York Badass. He's the best ever.
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 And it's also
I'm the man.
It's also kind of crazy that
Linlin, you're next.
After Baroni, Shamrock only fought twice more. He fought Kung Lee and then he fought Nick Diaz. For some reason in my mind, it seemed like he fought more for Strikeforce in that time period.
Nope.
Shamrock was basically retired by then, let's be honest. Like, even before the Baroni fight.
Well, I mean, before he fought Cesar Gracie and came out, he had been out of the game for 3 years.
Yeah, he never really got back into it.
The last old fight, and I really wish Derek was here. This is sort of his fight. This week was the third anniversary, and that's sort of crazy to think about. It was the third anniversary of Fabricio Verdum upsetting Fedor Emelianenko. That's nuts.
It wasn't that important.
Did you see the Anderson video that just came out, and he's training with Verdum, and they're going over the armbar that caught Fedor? That just came out this week on UFC.com.
I did not.
Yeah.
I'll have to seek that out. That was actually one of the things that was interesting rewatching it. It was one of the things that was talked about a lot. The armbar, the triangle armbar that Verdum landed, part of the reason he was able to get it was because when they were rolling around, Fedor got caught in the cage. They were rolling to his right, and the cage blocked his path. And I've always wondered what it would have happened if the cage wasn't there or if they were towards the center of the cage. Because part of the reason that Verdum was able to lock the triangle in was because Fedor couldn't move anymore.
I'll tell you what would have happened. Same thing that happened in the Lindland fight. Fedor would have cheated and grabbed the fucking rope.
Dude, come on. Fedor kills Lindland 10 times out of 10.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't.
Yes, he does.
No, he doesn't. Lindland was the top challenger against Anderson Silva that wasn't in the UFC.
All Fedor had to do with Lindland was just become a southpaw and then knock the shit out of him.
Yeah, but wait, we have Mookie Alexander bringing up another contender for fights that happened this week. I was actually at it. The Clay Guida versus Gray Maynard fight that happened at the Revel last year in Atlantic City.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Amazing fight.
It was brutal. There's a couple other things. We're at the 2-year anniversary of the Congo Berry fight, which is also the whole Nate Marquardt testosterone.
Brewing a card.
Yeah. But the Congo Berry fight was also one of those things that was sort of crazy. The Tough 3 finale, which I believe it was Bisping and Kendall Grove coming back up again. Kendall Grove. I do like, though, that there's this sort of synergy between Fedor debuting in Pride and also his loss to Verdum, which sort of kind of was the downfall of his career.
It's a nice circle right there.
Yeah.
I kind of want to go back to the Pride thing really quick. Are we ever going to see that shit again where, like, two of the greatest of all time debut in the same night? I mean, are we ever going to get something like that in the UFC? Like, is that ever going to happen again?
We might.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, it's less likely because there's so many fights and, so many fighters debuting now, but it's possible.
Yeah, shit, man. We got. I mean, that wasn't the first one where it happened. UFC 1 where we had fucking Hoist Gracie
And Keith Hackney.
and Keith Hackney. If you're coming on, then come on. I don't know if Keith Hackney fought in UFC 1. That's not a quote. Like, don't quote me on that, but that is his quote. Like, he did say, if you're coming on, then come on. That's my Keith Hackney.
Sure he did.
The other minor events that have happened during the last week over the past years. Rampage Jackson was born June 20th, 1978. Randy Couture was born in 1963 on June 22nd. And also, probably the other really noteworthy card, UFC 37.5, the Liddell Belfort card.
Yep.
That was the first live UFC fight on cable TV.
Yes, it was. Now, Mike, do you have a game of Would You Rather?
I do not.
All right. Well, I got one.
Do you got one for me?
Yeah, I got one. I'm gonna think about it on the fly. Michael, would you rather get into a penis measuring contest with Fallon Fox, or into a penis measuring contest with Karina Dam, or in a penis measuring contest with Chris Cyborg? Go, and why?
I don't even know how to answer this question.
Yeah, because your penis is super small against those people.
I'll take a round robin with all three of them. I'll take a round robin.
I didn't say. I said people. I want that to be on record. I said people, and I just wanted to make that known. Also, MMA Roasted, shout out to you, funniest dude in MMA.
Yeah, Mookie in the chat. MMA Roasted has measured the penises of all those ladies.
Man, MMA Roasted, like, can we just have like the best of his jokes like next week?
We could try that.
Roasted jokes of all time.
He really is the worst. Like,
he's like, here's the thing, like, and I've talked to Mookie about this, and like then we can hit the music and blah blah blah. But like, you don't need to be a parody account to be funny. Like, Mookie's funny. I know I'm hilarious. Like, you don't need to be called blah blah like MMA Roasted. Just be called Matt Roth.
But the thing is, he's not a parody account. He's just a dude that's a comedian that's trying to make MMA.
That's not funny. He sucks.
I know he sucks. He's terrible. Even Erica. I remember Erica when MMA Roasted first started coming up. I remember you talking to Erica about having him on the show. He's terrible.
Erica, he was on Last Comic Standing. Yo, that show went downhill though. That's like winning a daytime Emmy. It doesn't matter.
I think some of his stuff's funny. He's just got a really low hit rate.
No, Ian.
No, Ian.
I don't know if it's lost in translation with the Europe thing, but it's not funny.
Ian, here's the thing. You take that back, or you're not getting a link next week.
I'll still give you a link.
If I don't get a link, you'll lose like half your viewers. I am half your viewers.
No. Now we got this guy Matthew Stout. I have no idea who he is, but shout out to you.
Yeah, shout out to Matt Stout.
Shout out to Mike Fagan's dad. Throwing up Mike Fagan's
Baby Mike Fagan.
And shout out to Misha Tate's butt cheeks, gonna be in ESPN Body Magazine. Penis.